Welcome to Chatting the Pictures. My name is Cara Finnegan, and I'm a writer, teacher, and historian of photography.
And I'm Michael Shaw. I'm a writer, a psychologist, and also publisher of Reading the Pictures.
The virus story seems to be shifting to the race for a vaccine. There haven't been a lot of photos of the clinical trials, but this one suggests that all the risk-taking by young people is not just for fun.
This photograph was taken by Hans Pennink for AP on July 27, 2020. The image illustrates the beginning of phase 3 coronavirus vaccine trials in the U.S. We see a nurse giving an injection to a volunteer in Binghamton, New York, as part of the partnership between the National Institute of Health and Moderna, Inc. The volunteer is one of 30,000 people participating in testing across nearly 100 U.S. research sites. The study is part of a race involving almost 200 vaccine candidates across the world. Cara, this whole race to the vaccine is really complicated. I think a lot more complicated than it's being represented. And I think that's driven by political pressure, this time frame to try and have something available by the election or at least by the end of the year. But there's so many issues when you start to read about this. Issues of access. Who gets it? Are the antibodies going to last once someone gets the dose? There's geopolitical clashes. The US, UK, and China are in this race, and that has a lot of implications in terms of which country gets there first. There's manufacturing capability, there's distribution, shipping, and potential side effects if you rush something out too fast. So these pictures simplify, but I wonder if to some extent that is doing a disservice as much as it's informing.
I've taken to thinking of this photo as the good citizen with the dragon tattoo. I think at its foundation, it's really an image of citizenship in that true sense of being there for one another in community. So this volunteer, who represents the many other thousands of volunteers who have agreed to essentially take a risk for others, is performing an act of citizenship, a necessary one, a potentially dangerous one in certain contexts. And I think you see in her eyes maybe both this kind of hopefulness, but also a little anxiety, right? How is this going to play out for me as an individual who is volunteering, to a certain extent to put my body on the line? The anxiety, I think, for me also plays out in the presence of the media. You see the camera and the microphone behind the healthcare worker there. This is being, as you said, so closely watched, so carefully monitored. And the media, I think, to the extent that they're beginning to ramp up that anxiety, it's become the kind of horse race campaign of 2020 to a certain extent. I also just want to say something about this woman's aesthetic, which I think is fabulous and points, I think, to maybe a sense of willingness to take risk. Maybe this is a pandemic that requires a kind of badassery, for lack of a better term, to get through it and to contribute and to make a difference. So to the extent that all people have the capacity to be good citizens in this search for a vaccine, this photograph, I think, nicely highlights that.
One thing the photo does, and I think it's powerful and important, is it shows young people like Gen Zs redeeming themselves. I think young people are looking to make a contribution. Also, this photograph's a marked contrast from all these pictures we've seen of young, maskless partiers spreading the virus. Research showed that this last spike was driven more by young people. So I think that this picture is really fair in terms of people doing their part and having the opportunity to do their part, especially with young people who are just getting incredibly hammered by the economy, the recession, and the mismanagement of the response to the virus.